I realized I started to do something with this channel which was misleading. I was wearing a mask of Mr. Recovery. And there's so much more to it than that. My happiness today can be more centered under the blanket term of spirituality. So there's that. Back to a yoga practice. Essentially, yesterday I did nothing. I just kind of laid in bed like this. For those that don't know, I live in a recovery community, and I'm extremely grateful for that today because it keeps things fresh for me. Like yesterday, I started to beat myself up because for the first time in my 7 months of sobriety, I just laid around and the mind attacks, the ego works as such to where I felt guilty just like taking a day off, not doing a yoga practice, not going to 10 million meetings, not looking for jobs like crazy, things of that nature. So it was a full-on meditation. It was full-on discipline, not only to sit, meditate in my chair, but to battle the constant mind attacks. It was really something else. And then at the end of the day, to not be depressed, to actually be okay with it, is huge progress for me. So that's where I'm at. Did a lot of great contemplating. And the feeling of happiness is still there. It's like riding a wave. Sometimes you're directly on it, and then other times you're kind of meandering your way back up on it, so to speak. But yeah, that's where I'm at. But I did not pick up a drink or drug. So just keep getting better. What I have had time to do, besides buying this swanky lamp from Goodwill, is a lot of meditation and a lot of reading. So, since I don't really have a video planned out, I'm going to read something out of my current favorite book, No Mud, No Lotus, by Thich Nhat Hanh. This chapter is entitled Embracing Suffering. Super important because much of the world right now is lashing out as a way to prevent feeling their own going within and doing their own shadow work. If we let the suffering come up and just take over our mind, we can be quickly overwhelmed by it. So we have to invite another energy to come up at the same time, the energy of mindfulness. The function of mindfulness is, first, to recognize the suffering and then to take care of the suffering. The work of mindfulness is first to recognize the suffering and second to embrace it. A mother taking care of a crying baby naturally will take the child into her arms without suppressing, judging it, or ignoring the crying. Mindfulness is like that mother, recognizing and embracing suffering without judgment. So the practice is not to fight or suppress the feeling, but rather to cradle it with a lot of tenderness. When a mother embraces her child, that energy of tenderness begins to penetrate into the body of the child. Even if the mother doesn't understand at first why the child is suffering, and she needs some time to find out what the difficulty is, just her act of taking the child into her arms with tenderness can already bring relief. If we can recognize and cradle the suffering while we breathe mindfully, there is relief already. Embracing our suffering may seem to be the opposite of what we want to do, especially if our suffering is very large, as with depression. Depression is one of the most widespread forms of suffering in our time. It can take it can take away our peace, our joy, our stability, and even our ability to eat, move about, or do simple tasks. It can seem insurmountable, and we may think that the only thing we can do is either to run away from it or give into it. But non-judgmentally recognizing and embracing this great suffering is not at all the same thing as giving into it. Once you have offered your acknowledgement and care to this suffering, it naturally will become less impenetrable and more workable. And then you have the chance to look into it deeply, with kindness, but still always a sounded ground of mindful breathing to support you, and find out why it has come to you. Once again, your triggers are your teachers. It is trying to get your attention, to tell you something, and now you can take the opportunity to listen. You can ask someone to look with you, a teacher, a friend, a psychotherapist, a sponsor. Whether alone or together with your friends, you can explore what kind of roots it has, what nutrients and habits of consumption have been feeding your sorrow. You can discover how, through looking deeply, you can transform this organic garbage into compost, which in turn may become many beautiful flowers of understanding, compassion, and joy. I really love this reading, especially how he relates suffering to being compost, the garbage feelings that we dismiss being turned into compost, which may in turn become many beautiful flowers of understanding, compassion, and joy. I just think that's beautiful. And quite relevant in today's society, where we all have much shadow work to do. We have a lot of catalysts. That is a spiritual term for turning lead into gold. And that's the opportunity we have. So it's not a bad thing. Even the fears that are coming up for many are triggers. And to get to the spot where I'm at today would not have been possible without spirituality. It's just a blanket term for everything. My sobriety, my meditation practices, changing my diet, self-care, all these things came about from my spiritual awakening. So that's just where I'm at. I wanted to share this beautiful reading with you. So, also, for anyone who caught yesterday's video, the Joe Dispenza talk that I shared, I've been meditating on that a lot and just holding the feeling of gratitude. And between that and the 432 Hertz Rising Higher meditation tracks, I literally cannot stress enough how amazing I feel. Maybe it's got to be more than just one thing. But all I can do is continue to keep expressing myself daily because I want to share this feeling with the world. There is nothing to fear. This reality is technically all illusion. I mean, granted, we can't deny our humanness because that's spiritual bypassing. So we are here to learn, but it's time to dust ourselves off and do what we can, better ourselves each day. And I'm going to keep showing up and sharing this sentiment with you. Thank you so much for stopping in. Peace and love.